today for Ferrari.com we had the pleasure to have with us Kay from Jamiroquai. Thanks to be with us.
It's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
And let's kick off immediately with a question about Ferrari. You are a car enthusiast,
absolutely,
sure, and definitely you have a particular love for Ferrari. What appeals you in a Ferrari?
Oh, I think it stretches back to my childhood, really. There's always been something exotic about Ferrari. There's always been something that's a slightly different echelon from other manufacturers, and that's carried on over since I was a child. I mean, I think it was one of the first. It always somehow Ferrari always had something that other cars manufacturers didn't have. You know, it was something that was almost unattainable, particularly when I was a kid in the 70s. You know, if you saw a Daytona on the highway or something, it was a very unique, a special thing to see. There was something very hallowed about it. You know, something very magical about the whole car.
Well, you are a person rooted in a very avant-garde British club scene. Do you see Ferrari's image as avant-garde, or you are more attracted by the tradition of the Ferrari?
Oh, I think the tradition. I mean, in a sense, particularly with regards to the most important thing of all with Ferrari, which is the racing. So, and that's something that, again, really, other manufacturers, you know, don't happen to have that special bond, the link between the road cars and the racing cars, and. But you know, there are lots of different attractions within Ferrari. But for me, it's also very much about the old cars, the vintage cars, the early cars, and of course the styling houses that go with them. So you know, that's always been something that I've always kept my eye on. You know, I mean, I have a few old things now. One of them, funnily enough, being the old Vignale 330 GT, which I've just got hold of, which is quite funny actually, because almost at the same time I'd first seen it, of course, now you have the FF come out, you know, which is a different thing. But of course this bread van concept, which is also went with the Daytona. I think there were two built. There was a Michelotti car, and then the Vignale car, and then the Daytona bread van, you know. Yeah. And of course the actual GTO bread van, which was a fabulous thing as well, the Drogo-bodied car.
Loving so much sports car and loving so much Ferrari, have you ever thought of racing?
I have thought about it. I mean, you know, I've got friends of mine who are pushing me, sliding me towards doing some historic racing. So, which would be a lovely thing to do. I think it's just a question of finding the time to commit to it properly, and you know, be there. You know, at the start of a season, it's very difficult. Once you book a tour, I think even this year we've had so many different separate things, Tour Auto, and you know, I mean, okay, I managed to get the Emilia last year, but I think yeah, it's difficult to try and, you know, I've missed so many things this year. It's always the same every year, so, but yeah. Going
back to the Ferraris, our chairman usually like to say that Ferrari is like a beautiful woman.
Absolutely.
You have to fall in love when you see it,
yeah.
And when you see it, and then you have to desire it. Do you agree with it?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the few cars that does have that delectability about it. There's you know, something very delicate and very feline about the shape of the cars, and that's always been there. It's always been important. So I agree with him.
Talking about the chairman, if you could be chairman for a day in Ferrari, which is your priority? What would you like to see? What would you like to ask to the people working in Ferrari?
That's a very difficult question. I mean, I've always actually managed, I wouldn't mind putting my hand to the pen to change a couple of shapes, or perhaps do a special bodied car. That would be something that I'd really love to do. I'd love to do that, you know.
Great. A lot of people have compared the sound of an engine of Ferrari as a music. You are a famous singer, a famous musician. Do you agree with it? Is it really a music?
I absolutely agree. In fact, I'm one of the few. I have a Scuderia 16M at home, and it has the little iPod slot, and I've never ever put the iPod on. So absolutely, you know, there's a whole oral attack, the excitement of the, you know, of all the the machine, each one has a very different sound too, you know. I think the V8s compared to the V12s, and you know, recently I've managed to find a good F40 again, and of course this is a completely different thing as well. I always used to call my car Miss Whiplash, because you get the so yeah, absolutely, it's a very important part of it, and I think that's what people expect of the brand as well. That's what they need. That.
Very last question. If you have to think about one of your songs, etc., to be representative of sound of Ferrari, what sound of music will you compare with?
That's a difficult question, but I feel for me, every time I do an album, I always go and test it in the car anyway. So I test it to see how the speed of the track, whether it makes you want to put your foot down. Okay. And I think, you know, sometimes we do some good fast funk. It kind of, you know, it's kind of an attacking mode, you know.
Might be an advice for Alonso and Massa to put some of your music when
maybe.
you're driving.
That would be good, yeah. Absolutely.
JK, thanks a lot for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.